Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment. And I am towards the end of my 40-hour work week here with my good friend, coach, mentor, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Hey, Jim. I'm doing well. So good to be with you.
Good. I've kind of almost introduced the topic for the day.
That's right.
Just to make you laugh. It was worth it. But tell us a little bit about what we're talking about today.
It's entitled The Big 40, and I'm not talking about turning 40.
Good. I don't remember 40. It was so long ago. I'm sure it was good, but
Yes, I think it probably was. It probably was good. But I'm talking about a 40-hour work week.
There we go.
In 1900, the Ford Motor Company commissioned a series of tests to determine how long a work week should be to optimize productivity. And they discovered that the sweet spot was 40 hours per week. And so this is where the 40-hour work week was born.
Yeah.
And a gal named Sarah Robinson wrote about this in an article called, and the title of the article is Bring Back the 40-Hour Work Week. And she relays this part of the story. She says in 1914, they did 12 years of internal study up to this point.
Wow.
Henry Ford took a radical step. He did two things. He doubled his workers' pay, and he cut their shifts down from 9 hours in the plant to 8 hours.
Wow.
And all the other manufacturers who were friends and maybe competitors of Henry Ford criticized him for this. Although many of them climbed on board later after they saw how successful Ford got after they made this decision. And in 1937, the 40-hour work week was enshrined as part of the New Deal. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Mm-mm.
And by that time, there had been like 3 decades of data that proved beyond a doubt that if you wanted to keep your workers healthy and bright and productive and safe and efficient over a sustained period of time, you kept them to no more than 40 hours a week and 8 hours in a day. Now, one exception to this rule, there's an outfit called the Business Roundtable, and they did some research in the 1980s that discovered there is an exception that a company could get short-term gains by doing or going to a 60-hour week or a 70-hour week very briefly, like maybe once a year or twice a year. For example, you got to push extra hard to meet a production deadline or something like that. But they had warnings attached to that exception. And I think this is really the crux of what I want to talk about today. They learned that the increased hours yielded over time diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm.
So increasing a team's hours by 50%, let's say from 40 to 60, doesn't result in a 50% increase of productivity.
Right.
And I think some leaders assume that extra hours produce this equally matched extra output.
Right.
But that formula almost always fails.
Right.
What do you think about that first one, about this increased hours yielding diminished returns?
It seems like it couldn't in a manufacturing setting, because that belt is going down at whatever speed it's going down, and you're screwing this nut into that bolt 12 hours instead of 8 hours. It seems like it would that couldn't be true. So 50% more cars come past you, but I think the results state that it becomes so poor that you have to undo what you've done, fix what's broken, repaint what was done poorly, that you end up eventually it costs you money. And it makes sense. I can't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's at some point I am unproductive and I am not in the right place, or I'm destroying my personal life, or I'm destroying my health, and I think it's amazing that that Ford of all people, put this in place, the double salary. If I understand the story right, he did it so they could afford to buy a Model T.
Probably did.
That was part of it. And he invented Ford Motor Credit so they could borrow the money. They had to work. They had to, So he was a brilliant businessman, obviously, but he was also notoriously cheap. So he was getting the biggest bang for every dollar he was spending for the proper hours that
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I think this is absolutely true. I know it's true in my life.
Right. And so here's the second thing they learned is that working or warning that they kind of listed is working an extra 20 hours is effective only in short bursts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you put in 50 to 60 hours every week, your production, listen to this, declines every successive week.
Mm-hmm.
You do that.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you're doing 60 hours a week, 4 weeks in a row, by week 4, you're getting way less than you think out of that 60 hours. We all know this, right, Jim? When we get tired, we make mistakes that take longer to fix. It's harder to focus. It's production slows down. The business roundtable, the same outfit we mentioned earlier, they learned that just if you do 8 60-hour weeks in a row, the fall off in productivity is so dramatic that the average team would have been equally productive if they've just stuck to a 40-hour work week. And here's the thing, that I've lied to myself for a long time, thinking if I do 20 extra hours week after week after week after week, I'm going to get ahead. Research tells us that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. And then interesting because the cost of the first 40 hours is less than the next 20 hours with time and a half. Yeah. So you got time and a half, plus you got the other 20 hours at a higher rate.
Right.
So you're ending up spending twice as much for the same productivity after 6 weeks. 8 weeks? Was it 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think they said it was 8
60 hours, 8 weeks.
60 hours.
Yeah. So you're spending twice as much on labor,
right,
6 weeks later with that increased schedule. That's fascinating.
And then here's one more thing that came out of this. I like data, so this kind of stuff, it just fascinates me. And this one didn't surprise me. It's that long-term productivity really suffers.
Yeah.
Interesting enough that, let's say you have a short burst. You have 1 week where you do 20 extra or 30 extra hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the following week, your workers go back to 40. They learn that it can take several weeks for them to return to their normal output of 40. It is just so fascinating. So for a while, if you're pushing your team and you say, well, I've been pushing them too hard, we're gonna peel back to 40 a week for a while. You're not going to get 40 good hours from them for a few weeks because they're still recovering from that extra exertion week after week. So I just think, you think about it, Jim, and how in our Western culture, in the boomer culture, I'm a late boomer, and I mean, boomers tend to be workaholics. They tend to be achievement oriented, and there was this thing: if I just work harder, I just work longer, I just keep at it, that somehow, some way, that's going to make me more successful. That's going to make me richer. That's going to make me more respected. And what research is telling us is very little of that is true. Yeah. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
It is. It's funny. I was in the hospital years ago when a young man came in, and he was an intern, and he walked in, and confidence was not the first emotion I had when first of all, Dookie Howser walks in. Second of all, I just said, when was the last time you had a good night's sleep? He looked at me, looked up from his clipboard. He said, I have no idea. And looked back at his clipboard. I thought, you're getting ready to diagnose if I have a heart problem. Are you sure this is the right idea? So I think, again, I'm not sure what the hospital's metrics are and what they're trying to measure as positive, or what the constraints on the industry. But I think people know when someone is ready to serve you, and when someone's ready to sell you something, or ready to build something, or ready to minister to you, or, and I think having lives that have the proper boundaries, the proper cutoff times, as we're talking about today, it's everything, isn't it? It is not a small issue. And certainly Scripture, God creates a time that we can work where it's daylight, and a time where we can't work. We cannot work. Not, we got to figure it out. Like, we cannot work. And then he's got an agricultural, there's seasons of the year that you cannot work. You
Right.
you eat what you've planted, but you rest. And then you get the Levitical law where every 7 years, let it rest. Every 7 days, you got to rest. Your animals have to rest. It is, there are rhythms. And I wonder, John, if after all this, it isn't a matter of trusting God versus trusting our own selves, our own wisdom, that God has a pattern. And I think Henry Ford has observed it. He didn't create it.
Right.
The New Deal didn't create it. They just observed a rhythm that God said, if you want to be most productive, do it this way. Do it the way I tell you to do it.
And I think that really gets to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
I think it could be that simple, that it comes down to trust.
Yeah.
Am I doing this on my own? Am I trying to make this happen on my own? And I've done it.
Yeah.
Full disclosure.
Yeah.
Or do I trust that God is actually going to do the heavy lifting, and it's on me to plant, to water, like he's instructed us in scripture, and to trust him for the results, to trust him for the growth. And so we're not talking today about being lazy. We're talking about being smart. We're talking about being wise, about longevity. I'm a realist. I understand that if you're watching today or listening, that your work week doesn't always fit neatly into 40 hours. I get it. I get that. And I'm not suggesting that any work done after 40 hours a week is worthless. I'm not saying that either. Or that you're doing something inherently evil when you do. But please, 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 please be aware of the inevitable productivity decline after you reach the big 40.
Yeah.
You're a human being with limitations, God created limitations, who is not getting the same bang for his or her buck at hour 41 that you were in the first 40 hours.
Yeah. You think it's safe to say, I don't want to make too much of a universal or blanket statement that I could miss the exception, but I didn't obey my way to burnout. You probably didn't obey your way to burnout and depression.
No, I disobeyed my way.
We disobeyed our way. We decided, as all lies, all the way back to the Garden of Eden, that God may have been keeping something good from us. That I know he says to do this, but perhaps when my eyes are open, I'll see something better than what God has promised me. And there is no such thing as better than the plan of God. There's no such thing.
And Jim, that's so profound what you just said, because I think in some ways that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna do Sabbath because there's something better out there, and God's withholding it from me.
Yeah. He's
keeping it from me, and man, that is such a lie. And it created obviously great turmoil for all of us when Adam and Eve didn't get that right.
Yeah.
So Jim, wrap us up.
Yeah. So I said this recently on a recent podcast we did. I have blind spots. You have blind spots. Every leader has blind spots. And the only way to see my blind spots is to be honest with someone who can see what I can't. And I think this would be one of those areas. And I've watched you as you teach this in a room full of leaders where you get to the part about exercise and they kind of groan and look down at their pages and shuffle back and forth. And the second one, I would say, would be this part, right? The rest. Be done when you're done. 100%. Your work needs hard edges, not gradual soft edges. It needs a hard edge. I stopped working at blank o'clock unless somebody died, unless a baby was born in my family room, but I have to be done because I'm extraordinarily mortal and I have to trust God with the other hours of my day. So I feel like this is one of your life messages. And I'm encouraging our audience to listen to this because, the old Tuffy muffler commercial where you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Yeah.
I think that's one of these issues is you can rest now or you can rest later. But if you rest later, it'll be a forced rest. It'll be because of sickness.
That's right.
It'll be because of loss. It'll be because of burnout, depression. So one of the things we try to do is help you guys lead longer and more effectively and have a better time doing it. This is key. And listen to the two guys looking into the camera saying, we didn't read this in a book. We've done this poorly and suffered the consequences. So God bless you, our dear listeners. And we can help you in any way. Have somebody take a look at your schedule. If we can do it. What's nice about us is we're not your wife. We're not your husband. We're not your crew. We're a third set of eyes that has an opinion and has learned to live by that opinion, and we can help you. So Converge Coaching, go to convergecoach.com / something.
I think it's / contact us or something like that.
Yeah.
There's just the contact us link right
It's
on
right
the
there.
page. Yeah.
It's right there. And a half hour we'll hang out with you and ask some good questions and help you develop some good answers. So God bless you. And we are praying for you. Again, it's Tuesday. You didn't quit. Good for you. Keep going. Keep going. God bless you as you continue to lead from alignment.